Nice to see you all, and you feel free to have your cameras on or off for our three-part webinar. Let's take another minute to allow people to enter the room. We always have quite a few latecomers, especially for our non-mandatory programs.
You're talking with Israeli people. We're not afraid of late.
Yes. I'm afraid Israeli late is later than American late, right? For us, late, it's only 5 minutes, Yaron. Ugh. Yeah, let's take another minute. Okay, hi everyone. I don't know about you, but I feel here that I need another cup of coffee. Um, this is a very slow morning. I don't know if I can show you, maybe later. Snow in Connecticut, we're pounded. I think it will be more than a foot at the end. We were taking bets yesterday. We're just pounded by a huge snowstorm. My family is now, it's 11 a.m. here. My family is now starting to wake up. Hi, Nadine. Hello, my dear students. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the team at the Ghetto Fighters House, to Ronit Lusky, Dr. Mali Eisenberg, and Yaron Tzur, and they will introduce themselves, we agreed. This is a three-part webinar that launches a partnership that I'm very excited to form between the Fish Center and the Ghetto Fighters House. You should all know that the Ghetto Fighters House is a gem. It is Israel's second largest Holocaust museum. I think that we can establish that. But can I say that this is the oldest? That it was actually formed before Yad Vashem? I'm right, you see. It's the oldest Holocaust museum. It has an archive with work that for the most part has been digitized. You should feel free later to go to the Ghetto Fighters House archive. Well, I'm not here to teach you about the museum, but we decided that this will not be just a three-part introduction for you to the Ghetto Fighters House work, but also to the world of Holocaust museum work. So without further ado, we're going to be here for the next 3 Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to hand it to my esteemed colleagues at the Ghetto Fighters House, to Dr. Eisenberg, to Yaron, and I don't know if Ronit doesn't seem to join us today, but she's a part. Hi, Ronit. She's a part of the Ghetto Fighters House team. Um, my pleasure.
Okay, so hello and thank you for the opportunity to collaborate together, and welcome to the Ghetto Spaghetti House Museum course. My name is Mali Eisenberg. I'm the director of the Education and Academic Division in our museum. And welcome to our course, the Holocaust Education in Museum, Challenges, Methodology, and Innovation. The course will examine the theoretical and methodological aspects of teaching the Holocaust within the museum space. The course will include 3 classes. The first lesson will deal with the museum as a space of memory and learning. And our lecturer today is Yaron. Hi, Yaron. Yaron Tzur is the
Hi.
director of contact development and digitation of the Ghetto Spaghetti House Museum. Yaron is an educational innovation working at the interaction of historical memory and technology. He promotes the responsible and ethical use of AI. He harness digital tools to force deep moral dialogue within a compromising historical integrity. He holds an MA in History Education from Tel Aviv University. So, Yaron, good luck.
Thank you so much, Mali. Thank you so much, Shai. And hello, everyone. It's great to see you. If it will be just possible for those who their cameras are not open yet, it will be great to see you because otherwise I'm just looking at the dark here. As Mali introduced me before, I'm the head of content development at our museum, the Ghetto Fighters House Museum. And today we're going to begin our first session with the pedagogy of our museum. And hopefully, one, it will be interesting for you. And second, that it will give you a glimpse of who we are, what we stand for, and what we're dealing with in general, and maybe even specifically in the last 2 years, which have profoundly had an impact on Holocaust education, I think in general, but in our museum, I can say it definitely. So let's begin. I'll share my presentation. Just a second. There you are. Share sound, and I am sharing. And let me just see you again. 1 second. Okay. So let's begin. First of all, I'd like to show you a short introduction film of our museum to give you some kind of concept of who we are. Before I begin the video, you can see already on your screen our museum and the amphitheater right near the museum. On the left is Yad Layeled, the Children's Museum. It's the round building. The trees and the houses above the museum are the kibbutz Lochamei Ghettot, or the ghetto fighters kibbutz, because the people who founded the kibbutz, who are also the people who founded the museum, and they were Holocaust survivors. You can see the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and if you look at the distance, you'll see mountains. That's already Lebanon. That's how north we are. So let's begin.
The Ghetto Fighters House, Yitzhak Katzenelson Holocaust and Jewish Resistance Heritage Museum, known as The House, is the world's first Holocaust museum. The museum was established in April 1949, exactly
Yaron,
6 years
we cannot
after
hear
the
anything.
Warsaw Ghetto Uprising by
you,
young
you have to have the volume on.
former members of youth movements, some of whom were leaders of the uprising. From its early days, the founders aimed to tell the story of the Holocaust, focusing
Yaron,
on the
can you hear
triumph
me?
of the human spirit, the possibility of...
Yeah.
We cannot hear anything.
Shai, you can't hear?
I can hear it.
Just a second.
Did you mute yourself?
We can hear it. We can hear it.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
choice
Sorry, I
that
was
stands
muted.
before individuals and the remarkable ability of Holocaust survivors who found the strength to rebuild their lives from the terrible catastrophe. Today, the museum hosts a rich variety of innovative exhibitions and attracts numerous visitors from Israel and around the world to its exhibits and various activities. From the destruction and chaos left in the wake of the Holocaust, hope and vision were born. We look to the past as a warning sign to learn and remember, but also as a source of inspiration for building a better society. This is our opportunity to learn from the past and work towards a different and better future. We invite you on a journey, both personal and collective, a journey through time following the human experience then and now. Through the ages, we must revisit the object, the testament, the song, the artwork, the personal, and essentially the tangible, for it embodies the memory. The memory of the Holocaust lives and breathes within every object. Each one unfolds a story, passed down from generation to generation, holding within it a piece of our history. They enable us to remember and never forget. One day, all this will come to an end, and evil will be eradicated. Life will go on, because that is the way of the world. The sun will rise, and perhaps no one will remember. But one thing burns within me and urges me on, to tell accurately and immediately, to tell now, today. We must learn about the past from those who were there for as long as possible. From then on, the responsibility for memory rests on our shoulders.
אני כתבתי על מה שאני רואה כבר בגטו, ואחר כך כשהתחילו להכחיש את השואה, אני החלטתי שהמתים לא יכולים לדבר, ואני יכולה לדבר ואני זוכרת, ותמיד כשאני מספרת על השואה, הם כאילו חוזרים אליי.
The personal stories of the founders, Holocaust survivors, who from the depth of the great catastrophe managed to rebuild new lives. Every corner here tells a story. Every testimony is a voice. Every memory is a light. At the Ghetto Fighters House, we are here to preserve the memory.
אם השקענו כל כך הרבה שנים בהקמתו של הבית הזה, זה לא מציבה על מה שהיה. זאתי אזהרה, זה לימוד. זה צריך לדור בעורקי הדם של הדורות שלנו.
As history teaches us, there are also dark sides within humanity, those that can lead to evil, cruelty, and even murderousness.
עד היום, ובוודאי גם בימים יבואו, ישאלו עצמם אנשים, אבל איך זה יכול היה לקרות? איך זה היה אפשרי בצהרי המאה ה-20?
When looking at the glass booth, one understands that humanity can reach places of great darkness. It depends on our choices, on the path we choose to take. History is not just stories from the past, but a mirror to the future. To learn, to internalize, and to ensure we do everything possible to prevent such evil from happening again. A visit at our museum is an opportunity to understand the power of individuals to maintain their humanity, even under the most difficult conditions. It was a spiritual resistance, demonstrating that despite the darkness, there is always a place for hope.
הסיכה הזאת נוצרה על ידי אסירה, קראו לה אילונקה ברבר, והיא מועסקת בסדנת תפירה במחנה. היא תפרה את סיכת הלב הקטנה הזאת משאריות של בד, ובמרכז של הסיכת לב הזאת היא רקמה תמונה זעירה שלה ושל הרוס שלה. אחרי מלחמה, כשהיא חוזרת לפולין, נודע לה שהוא לא שרד. אני חושבת שאפשר ללמוד מהסיפור הזה על תעצומות נפש של אישה צעירה. להמשיך ולהיאבק ביום יום כדי להישאר בחיים וכדי לפגוש אותו לאחר מכן.
In 1943, the largest Jewish revolt during the Holocaust broke out, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, led by the guides and leaders of the Jewish youth movements. To this day, this uprising reflects the strength of young people in resistance and leadership and serves as an inspiration for people's ability to convey change. As part of the visit at our museum, we incorporate theatrical monologues and full original performances. We believe that integrating theater into the museum deepens the memory of the Holocaust and creates a bridge between the past and the present. During the Holocaust, there were acts of rescue that serve as a beacon for the goodness within humanity. Righteous among the nations, countries, and communities that acted to save Jews, as well as Jews who saved other Jews. These stories are an inspiration about the human capacity for choosing good, solidarity, and social involvement. Each of us can be a voice for change and hope. This is the message of the museum, of faith in a better future. At the Yad Layeled Museum, we delve into the memory of childhood during the Holocaust, a perspective of innocence, bravery, and hope through the eyes of the Holocaust survivors who were youngsters at the time. Personal and moving stories of children who experienced the unimaginable. Yad Layeled seeks to understand history from a young perspective and to recognize the strength these children discovered within themselves during that time. Alongside this, the museum aims to commemorate the memory of the 1.5 million Jewish children who perished during the Holocaust. As part of the museum's vision, the Center for Humanistic Education was established with the goal of teaching the Holocaust as a historical crisis that brings forth social and human dilemmas of universal nature. The center leads educational processes that connect history to our lives today, emphasizing themes of identity, belonging, attitudes towards others, personal responsibility, and social involvement. The programs foster dialogue among groups from diverse cultural backgrounds within Israeli society and from other countries, aiming to address conflicts, develop dialogue skills, and confront racism.
אני פונה לדור הצעיר, לאלה שיבנו את עתיד הארץ הזו ויעצבו את החברה בה. לנו ששרדנו, החופש היה קשה ומכאיב. לחזור לחיים ולהתחיל הכל מחדש נראה כבלתי אפשרי כמעט. עזרו לנו האמונה והתקווה, ושבארצנו החברה תהיה צודקת, מוסרית, טהורה, ובה יישמר צלם האדם בכל התנאים והמצבים.
Now, together with the educational team, we will embark on a journey to learn about the past, discover stories that will provoke thought and emotion, and look towards the future. Now it's time to set out, explore, learn, and pass on the knowledge.
Okay, so that's us in a nutshell. And I'd like to begin with one thing that one of our former curators of the museum said a while ago. A museum is not a history book. Its purpose is to create a different kind of dialogue with the visitor. And I think that's something that really sticks with us. Every time our visitors arrive at the museum, most of them youngsters, teenagers, junior high, elementary school. And we know that when they're here, in order for us to go into history with them, it's not about teaching history. It's about experiencing history. It's about experiencing an exhibition, experiencing a dialogue within the museum. And that's where we drive our guides to go during a visit. By the way, I just want to say, and if you have any question during my speak, first of all, feel free to ask. At the end, I'll give time for Q&A. And if you'd like, you can do it in the chat of Zoom, anything you like, okay? Feel free to do so. So let's go to the pedagogy of our museum. And I'd like to begin with our pedagogical concept. And I divide it into three concepts, three pillar concepts, I'd say, regarding our museum, which is Holocaust memory, warning from the past, inspiration towards the future. Let's begin with Holocaust memory. So in the not so distant future, there will be no more Holocaust survivors among us. Holocaust remembrance is shifting from personal testimony to personal responsibility. We aim to inspire our visitors with that sense of responsibility, meaning that we understand that we are on the crossroads of history, meaning that in a decade from now, there won't be any Holocaust survivors no more. So what does that do to memory? And what do we think it puts on the shoulders of our visitors? And we want to inspire them to be active in terms of memory, because memory, and this I think is something really important, it doesn't just happen. You know, you have your own personal memories, but to remember the Holocaust, to remember a collective memory, you need to choose to remember. It won't just happen. And that's something that we want to challenge our visitors during their visit at our museum. And on that matter, you heard before Yaakov Vielnik, a Treblinka survivor, the person you're seeing this in the picture right now. What he's doing is creating the model of the Treblinka camp, which is in our museum, located in our museum, in an exhibition called The Hall of Camps. And he created this model to the request of the founders of our museum, specifically Antek Zuckerman and Sivya Lubetkin, husband and wife, and two of the main leaders of the Ghetto Warsaw Uprising in 1943. And he creates this model because he believes that the day will come and no one will believe that a place like Treblinka existed. Because if you go to Poland today and you go to Treblinka, there is no Treblinka and there are no Treblinka survivors. There's the model that Yaakov Vielnik, a Treblinka survivor, created with his own hands. By the way, he was a carpenter and he actually was forced to build the actual Treblinka. That's how he knew afterwards to create this model. A warning from the past. We believe that the Holocaust happened because it's possible. It's one of the possibilities of human nature. Humans have the capacity to create Auschwitz and gas chambers and Einsatzgruppen and so on. It's part of who we are. It's a part of what we are able to do. We have that potential to be those SS officers, these Eisengruppen soldiers, and so on. And to us, it's a profound idea for our visitors that we want to challenge their assumptions, you know, because many of our visitors will say, well, they were monsters. Well, they were animals. Well, they had no feelings. Well, and so on and so on. But wait a second, that's not actually true. They were human beings. They actually did have feelings, and we know this because they shifted from sites of mass extermination in the Soviet Union to gas chambers in Poland, because it was actually hard, difficult emotionally for them to take part in the physical extermination. So we want to talk about the Nazis not as monsters, but as human beings. And one of our core exhibitions, for that matter, is facing the glass booth. What you're seeing at the moment, right before you, is the original glass booth where Adolf Eichmann sat during his trial in Jerusalem in 1961.
A man who cannot utter a single sentence that isn't a cliché.
He keeps saying he was only following orders. He claims he was merely a cog in the machine.
His normalcy is more terrifying than any act of brutality. This is the banality of evil.
So what we've done in this exhibition, we brought 4 voices of 4 journalists who witnessed the trial firsthand in 61, one of them being Hannah Arendt from The New Yorker. And every one of them had a different assumption, a different point of view about who was the person sitting inside the glass booth, Adolf Eichmann. Last but not least, inspiration towards the future. It is better to teach the good than to condemn the bad, Spinoza. We believe that education must offer more than darkness. To truly reach the younger generation, we must also illuminate what is good and worthy in humanity, in society, especially during the Holocaust. Now, this is one of the greatest paradoxes of Holocaust education. For example, I will show our visitors the glass booth, or I will show the visitors the model of Treblinka, and I'll tell them, you see that? Be the opposite. But they don't understand what the opposite is. It's not helpful to educate people only by showing them evil and tell them, do the opposite of that. It's actually the opposite of education. And that's a paradox. So we believe that we need to inspire our visitors during their visit in our museum, not only to see how horrible human beings can be, but also how good they can be. For example, in the same exhibition where our visitors meet the Treblinka camp, they also see this artifact. This artifact this is what it's, by the way, you can see maybe in the reflection of the glass, the model of the camp. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's there, believe me. And these wooden scales were created by 3 women inmates in Blechheimer camp, which is a subcamp of Auschwitz. They created the model in order to divide the food among them equally, to be fair with each other. This is an amazing act of solidarity. It's an amazing act of humanity in a camp that tries constantly to dehumanize the prisoners. To divide the food equally among each other in a place like Blechheimer is a moral choice. Prisoners were making moral choices even in places like this. As Viktor Frankl once said, I didn't choose to be a prisoner, but I did choose what kind of prisoner I would be. So the idea of inspiration, even in the terms of Holocaust education, maybe especially. Second, I'd like to talk to you about our methodologies. So as we have 3 pillars to our pedagogic ideas, we also have 3 concepts of our methodologies. One is guiding in a museum space. Second is active learning. And third, questions and dilemmas. Let's get into it. So guiding in the museum place. We believe that an exhibition, a gallery, a museum is a holistic environment. It's not just a place. It's not just a room, okay? Everything located in an exhibition has a meaning, okay? And we want our guides to be able to bring the ideas of the exhibition to our visitors. Otherwise, they're just speaking, okay? I'll give you an example. I've been, working with guides many years in the museum, and I give them, especially the new guides, I watch them guide their first times, and then I give them feedback. Sometimes I would see guides speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking in an exhibition, okay? Guides love to speak, know that. And they're just frustrated actors. And I would ask the guides afterwards, let me ask you this. Could you give that speech anywhere else? If the answer is yes, then the group wasn't in an exhibition. They were just in a TED Speak, okay? And it wasn't unique to where it was happening, to a museum, to an exhibition, to the art, to the curation. All of that is meaningful and it needs to be shown to our visitors. So that's one thing. Second is active learning. We hold that meaningful learning is inherently active, and I quoted here Benjamin Franklin, "Tell me, and I will forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I will learn." And I think that's something that we try to do really, really hard. We don't always succeed, but we want our visitors to be active during their visit in a museum, not only to open their eyes or ears, but be able to be involved in the process during the visit with a guided exploration, for example, facilitated dialogue. It's all in to create a space where visitors do not merely consume history, but actively construct its meaning. And third, open questions and dilemmas. I think we want to challenge our visitors' perspective, not only give answers, but to ask open questions that can really create a discourse between us and our visitors. For example, if I ask the visitors, what kind of people were the Nazis? Okay, or how did the Nazi Party rise to power? Now, these two questions are questions that I'm dealing with, and I've been working in Holocaust education for many years, but it's still a question for me. If it's a question for me, it's also a question for them. But if I already have the answer, then it's not a question anymore. I'm just testing them. You know, do you understand what I mean? It's like, if you already know the answer, don't ask, okay? It's actually quite annoying, I have to say. I think that the best discussions I had with visitors is when they felt that that the questions that I'm asking them are sincere, and that I'm dealing with these questions too, even though I'm 40 years older than them, or 10 years older than them, or, you know, I don't want to go into my age, but I just want to say that if they can feel that I'm sincerely invested in a question, they will be invested in the question as well, because they know that I'm not testing them. I'm not waiting for them to say what I want to hear. This is a question. Let's talk about it together, because I'm not smarter than you, and I don't have any answer better than you. So let's get into it together. And that sense of we're going into this journey together, that creates something, in my opinion, very special. Okay, so I'd like to shift now from the general to something much more specific, which is our museum in the last 2 years, since October the 7th. I'm saying 2 years, it's not 2 years anymore, but to me, it's always 2 years. I don't know why. And I think that in that matter, we have been, you know, what happened on October the 7th changed Israeli society forever. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here. It's true. If you're not Israeli, if you don't live here, you don't know what it means to see people that are traumatized. That you see it in their eyes, you see it in their speech, you see it, it's all around them. And they're coming to our museum with this trauma. You know, sometimes once someone said, you know, it's not even post-trauma, because we're still in it, you know, we're still in we wish it will be post-trauma, but it's not even post-trauma yet. And I'd say that they are two fundamental dilemmas, questions that we have been dealing with since October the 7th. One, how has this trauma reshaped the visitors' perspectives? And two, what should be our educational response? And I'd like to say in that matter two things. One, how has October the 7th changed our visitors? Well, I'd give at least two examples of that change, at least in terms of Holocaust memory and education. One, they're coming to our museum, I'd say sometimes, not a lot, not every time, but sometimes, with extreme point of views, okay? In terms of it can go to hatred, it can go to fear, it can go to disbelief, it goes to many places, but you can see this extremeness in many times about even a sense of revenge, and I will talk about that soon. And I think that that's one thing that we have been seeing with our visitors. The second, or the first, I don't know which the first is, but maybe the first is the second. But the second is the equation between the Holocaust and the 7th of October, meaning to many of our visitors, the new Holocaust is the 7th of October. What happened on the 7th of October is the Holocaust. What happened to the hostages is the Holocaust. What happened to in terms of murder and in terms of atrocities, the only thing that they can be reminded of is the Holocaust. And to many of them, it feels like the Holocaust is so distant that to me, a young person, I understand the Holocaust through October the 7th. And of course, both things that I just said right now are problematic. They're problematic in terms of, no, the 7th of October is not the Holocaust. It's not similar to the Holocaust. It's distant from the Holocaust. There are certain things that you could say, wait, this reminds me, okay? But looking at it from a distance or an academic distance, it's not I would say it's not correct to say that this is the Holocaust, but it's understandable why they're doing that, okay? Because sometimes they're looking at these events, they've just happened, and it feels like this is the most horrible thing they ever occurred in their lifetime. And the only thing before was the Holocaust, okay, in terms of atrocities. And the second thing being extremism or extreme ideas or point of views. That's something that I want to go a little bit deeper right now. So I'd like to talk to you a bit about these two handsome gentlemen. On the right, you have Antek Yitzhak Zuckerman, one of the founders of our museum and one of the founders of the kibbutz and one of the leaders of the Ghetto Warsaw Uprising. And on the left, you have Abba Kovner, a partisan from Vilnius, Lithuania. He was the leader of HaShomer HaTzair in that city, and with friends and other young people from the youth movement, left to the forest and became fighters in a partisan unit. And in 1944, the city of Lublin is liberated, Lublin in Poland. And many Jews who have recently survived the Holocaust are flowing into that city, Lublin, And between them, Yitzhak Zuckerman and Abba Kovner. And an argument begins between them. You need to know, I would say that they are very dominant young leaders at the time in the Jewish community, especially of young people. Very well known, very admired, both of them. And by the way, both of them great, amazing human beings. Okay, because I have a little bit of criticism towards Abba Kovner, but he's an amazing individual. And in that argument, I want to show you. Wait a second. That's not what I wanted to do. 1 second. Okay. In that argument, Yitzhak Zuckerman says about Abba Kovner the following. The meeting with Abba Kovner's group in Lublin was fateful. Differences of opinions and assessments were found between us. They came to the conclusion that the whole world is murderous and all the Jews are victims. We should not live only with the matter of revenge, but also education. They, Kovner's group, did not see in front of them the Jews who survived the Holocaust, but only the destruction, which indeed was. They were driven by their desire for revenge. And Abba Kovner creates a group called the Revengers. And their goal is revenge. And they had 2 plans. First plan was to poison water wells in Germany, especially in Hamburg, the city of Hamburg, and to kill as much Germans as possible. And plan B was to kill German POWs. They weren't successful with plan A. They were a bit successful with plan B. And they didn't kill any POW, but they were able to poison loaves of bread of the prisoner camp. And many of the prisoners were hospitalized. Now, this argument is, I would say, the ground zero of the attitudes towards the take of the Holocaust or the aftermath of the Holocaust. Yitzhak Zuckerman believed that now it's the time to rebuild, to find Jewish children who were scattered all over Europe, to bring them to Israel, to build a kibbutz, to build a museum, rebuild. Okay, that was his idea and the people that he gathered around him. Okay, Abba Kovner, for many years, he, in that group of the Revengers, I would say that it was the main idea that drove them. And I think that argument is was really relevant then and is really relevant now. Because I think that when I look at Israeli society today, I can see these 2 concepts arguing again. The concept of rebuilding and the concept of revenging. And I know, as someone who works at this museum, founded by these people, that their legacy was the exact opposite of that. And since October the 7th, I think that their ideas of the aftermath of the Holocaust is I'd say one of the most profound educational ideas we have to give to our visitors. And it's become, I think, really, really important. And in that matter, going back to Yitzhak Zuckerman, he laid down this small statue in Warsaw, For those of you who have been in the Poland Museum in Warsaw, it's right in the entrance, near the entrance of the museum. And what you can see here is the letter Bet. It's a Hebrew letter. It's the second letter of the alphabet, of the Hebrew alphabet. And it's the first letter of Genesis, of the Bible. It's the letter with the beginning of the word Bereshit, the beginning. And it is so metaphorically and symbolically amazing to put that letter as part of their legacy on the streets of Poland. What will be our beginning now? Where do we go to? What do we do? Where do we go from here? And I put here from the Bible again, the very famous saying in English and Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's better, by the way. This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. And that idea of choosing life, it doesn't just happen. You need to choose life, and that's what the founders of our museum did. They chose life. And to them, this is how it looked like. The first Holocaust museum in the world, the Ghetto Fighters House, located in the Western Galil, and above it, the kibbutz. And all of the people living in that kibbutz were Holocaust survivors, all of them. And they woke up every morning and they built a museum and they built a factory, a very successful factory, by the way. And they bring children to the world. That was their idea, to go on living. Or as Yitzhak Zuckerman said, we emerged from shattered walls and came here to build new walls, a new home that pulses with life. And I think that in that matter, that is, I think, the most important legacy that the founders gave us to our museum. And we try to this day to give to our visitors coming to the gates of our museum. And I think that in the last 2 years, it's been really, really challenging in that matter to be within that legacy of rebuilding, of hope, of inspiration, of knowing that the day after atrocities and a horrific disaster, life can go on, should go on, needs to go on. And how do you do it? And I think that they try to give us the tools to think about how do you go on living after you lose everything? Because they, the founders of our museum, they lost everything. They lost their families, they lost their communities, they lost everything. They came to Israel as orphans with nothing and built everything new again. And that's why I'm sitting here today talking with you. And that's how they created this really amazing museum. And I'm not saying this only because I work here and my CEO is looking around behind my back and saying, oh, what are you saying about us? But I really think that this museum is this amazing gem, and it has a mission and ideas that are really unique for us and for the museum. So I wanted to take the last part of our talk, of my talk, I talked until now, for us to make it from a monologue to a dialogue. And I'd really like, first of all, let's begin. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, I'd be more than happy to answer. But also, if you have things that you have in mind, dilemmas, things that you agreed with me or disagreed with me, or things you'd like to share, anything at all. And by the way, this is also a part of the DNA of our museum. It's not about what I have to say, it's a lot about what you have to say. And I think that's what we're trying to do as from an educational and dialogue point of view. So be my guests.
ירון, תודה רבה. Thank you for this powerful presentation. Yaron, by the way, was a madrich. He was a youth counselor in my youth group. I remember him before the gray hair we both had. You did such an amazing job. Thank you. I'm going to encourage our students, more students, to attend next time. And let me just make sure this is not a series, right? So the students who did not attend this one are most welcome to attend the next session. I will also share it with our students, the recording. So more students are going to be watching it. It's time for your, but please turn on your cameras if you'd like to ask a question. It's time for your, but by the way, the Fish Center visited the Ghetto Fighters House a couple of years ago, and this is our plan to every other year have a study abroad trip to Israel and to visit Israel's many Holocaust museums and institutions. Tourists normally think about Yad Vashem as the go-to location, and you have such a beautiful facility. I love your cafeteria. I think you have more than one, right? But the new cafe, the bakery, and now it's so easily accessible by the train. It's just a gem. Okay. Friends, questions? Anna, go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was just so fascinating. And I've never been to the museum, but I will next time I go to Israel. So I have a few questions, but I'll just pick one for now. If I understand something you said, it was almost about, this isn't quite the right word, but installing memory for your visitors, as if they take on a collective memory as Jews. So they leave with a sense that something that didn't happen to them or their parents or even grandparents now feel it is part of their story, their collective memory. And I'm fascinated by that process and also wonder what it's like for your Mizrahi visitors, Israeli visitors who may feel this wasn't their piece of history. But could you talk a little bit about that? And if I've got that right in terms of that way of thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, two great questions. So I'll begin with the first one. Installing the sense that Holocaust memory is my responsibility. To me, by the way, personally, it took me a long time to understand that memory, collective memory, okay, it doesn't just happen. You know, you need to choose memory, okay, because the only memories that we are committed to are our own, right? Because the only memories that we have are our personal memories, okay, or our family memories. But when it comes to the memory of the Holocaust, if the young generation won't feel committed in some way that this is their responsibility to hold on to that memory, I can tell you, and I'm 100% sure about it, that this memory won't continue. It won't. It can't, because I think that first of all, we are dealing with lots of Holocaust distortion, and you know, once upon a time when there was Holocaust denial, I felt much more at ease. Why? Because the Holocaust deniers weren't the mainstream. Okay, they were just these. You would see them, you would hear them, you would say, "Ah, them, okay." Got it. Okay. Holocaust distortion feels like it's happening all around. Okay. And it's more gentle, it's more subtle. And and this concerns me much, much more than Holocaust denial, because it is going to the mainstream. And that's why I feel that we as educators have this responsibility not only to tell the story, but to create the sense that the story that you are given right now, it's like this treasure box. Okay, I'm not sure if treasure box is the right, is the right word for that, but you know where I'm going to with it. Okay, and I feel that the moment they understand that, okay, in just a decade from now, until 2030, 2035, there won't be anyone in the world who will say or be able to say, I was there. So what does that personally mean for me, a young adult? And even if you decide that you don't care, even if you decide that, okay, I'm good with that, I want you to know, at least I want you to know that that not that you're accountable, but that I'm trying to bring this story to you, to your door, okay, to your arms, and you make a decision what you're going to do with that. But I want you to know that you need to make that decision. So that's regarding your first question. The second question, I'm proud to say that last year we launched a new project regarding the Jews of North Africa during the Holocaust and World War II. It's an online workshop. By the way, it's both in Hebrew and in English, so you can facilitate this workshop whenever you like. And it brings the story of all of the four Maghreb countries in North Africa: Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and Libya. And suddenly, for many of our, as you call them, the Mizrahi visitors, say, wait a minute, now you're talking to me. Now you're talking the story of my grandparents or my great-grandparents. Suddenly, it's not just a European story. Suddenly, there's place for me and for my ancestors within this narrative. And it's really exciting. I'm excited right now, even talking to you about it, because it feels like that for many years, there wasn't any place for that story and for those people and for those histories. Because, in North Africa, sometimes it's more connected to the Holocaust and sometimes it's less connected to the Holocaust. Sometimes it's more World War II than Holocaust. And sometimes there's not a Jewish story in those countries, but sometimes there are, especially in Libya. So I think that in that matter, that it's doing lots of justice to those communities and to those people and to our young visitors who until a while ago felt like nobody is talking about their story. And it could be really angering, by the way, and antagonizing. So yeah, I'm happy we went there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I think we
Yes.
had a couple more questions. Jill, did you have a question before? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I
And then
just
Ida, and then
thanks.
we'll let you go.
One quick comment about Abba Kovner and Yitzhak Zuckerman. I just think that in the immediate aftermath, you can understand both points of view, right? I want revenge,
Yeah,
I want
definitely.
rebuilding. But what is the sweetest revenge? In the end, to rebuild. I just wanted to make that comment. But I had a question about your second pedagogical concept, warning from the past. October 7th was not the Holocaust. It was an atrocity in and unto itself. But when you want to incorporate warnings from the past, we're not going to see if we ever see something like the Holocaust again, something that's identical to the Holocaust that we know existed. So how do you explain what warnings and what to do with these warnings? Do you try to encourage, visitors to the museum to look for specific acts of anti-Semitism? When does it rise to the level of, okay, here we go, it's a warning? October 7th was not a warning because it wasn't like the Holocaust. What would be a warning? Or something that you would warn about, I should say.
Yeah, I understand your question. Let me just begin with Abba Kovner because it's really important for me that I have lots and lots of appreciation for Abba Kovner. And I totally understand that aftermath, the day after the Holocaust, and those emotions and those motivations. By the way, I don't know about myself in which path I would choose in 1944. Sometimes I feel more Abba Kovner than Ante Zuckerman. Regarding what you said afterwards, look, one of the things we try to do here is create a sort of reflection, meaning don't look at the glass booth and say, well, these people were maniacs, sociopaths, psychopath, and so on. Like the author said that it happened on another planet. It happened on our planet. This means that Nazism is a part of humanity. It's not the opposite of humanity. And as I like to say sometimes, when Nazis went to the dentist, they were afraid as well. And I think that in that matter, I want, one of the reasons that exhibition is called Facing the Glass Booth is that our visitors are sitting on benches facing the glass booth. Now, when you look at the glass booth, it's glass. So what's reflected in the glass booth? The visitors. There's no Eichmann sitting there anymore. They only see themselves. And this is symbolically, I think, important. The idea that could it be me? And if it could be me, what would it take for it to be me? Were the Nazis born Nazis or did they become Nazis? And if you become a Nazi, what does it take for someone to become a Nazi? Those are the warning signs. If I'm going to your question, Jill, about the Hamas, there's nothing for me to learn about the Hamas. Because when you're motivated by what motivates them, it's not something that my visitors can learn something about. At least I feel so. Okay, maybe I'm mistaken, by the way, but that's how I feel so. I want them to have this sense of, before you say that the Nazis were insane, wait a second, hold your breath. Let's talk about it a little bit more. Okay? And that's what we try to aim at.
Okay, and the last Ida.
Hi. I'm going to try to figure out how to word my idea, my thought. In the diaspora, I understand that maybe the Holocaust memory could get lost, and I could also understand that maybe it clearly resonates more with Jews than it would with non-Jews. As much as we've tried at the USHMM to teach the world and to educate people, or even in the downtown Manhattan Museum, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, to have school groups come. But it doesn't reach them or touch them for the most part in the same way that it will Jews. And that might be a hard thing to do. But it was interesting to me that you said it has to be a choice to remember. And I agree that it has to be a choice to remember. But I would think that in Israel, it's part of the Israeli, it's so deep into they have a, the Holocaust Memorial Day where you have to stop for a minute and the whole entire country stops for a minute, or the fact that there's all these museums, and the same way that you're going to remember, the War of Independence in 1948. And, we have so many collective memories as Jews that it was just interesting to me that you seem to say that it's becoming more difficult for Israeli children or the youth to really connect to this memory, even though don't they connect to all their historical memories? And isn't that part of who we are as a people, that we always, do remember? And it's sort of almost natural for us. We still remember the Chorban, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm asking this question clearly, but I'm thinking that it's something that's just going to be another part of the Jewish memory, especially in Israel, more than it might resonate somewhere else. If that was clear. I don't know if it was, but.
Let me give you an example. I see that Liat is with us. She's the curator of our museum. And a year and a half, 2 years ago, launched a new exhibition called Among the Trees, bringing the story of the Holocaust in the Soviet Union. And there's this amazing video presentation, not really presentation. It's kind of hard to explain. You need to come. All of you need to come. Now, tomorrow. So in that part of the exhibition, you're in this forest, and suddenly the whole experience of the Jews in the Soviet Union within the forest, and their testimonies and the witnesses and the shooting and the partisans and everything is happening, pretty amazing. And then our visitors leave this part, and in every exhibition we have a part in where they can reflect and have a conversation about their experience. And suddenly, when they leave that part of the exhibition, which deals with the Holocaust that happened in the Soviet Union 80 years ago, what's the first thing that comes to mind to them? It's not forests in the Soviet Union 80 years ago. It's a forest in Israel in 2023 called the Nova. That is much more closer to their experience than a forest in Belarus from, almost 100 years ago. And the first times that I heard that, I was pretty shocked. But then I thought, yeah, well, it's probably understood that it's much more closer to their lifetime, to their experience. They know minute by minute what happened in that forest. And suddenly you have these almost competing narratives, okay, of something that happened once upon a time in a like in Star Wars, in a galaxy far, far away, or the Nova Forest. Now, Ida, does that mean that they're losing a grip on memory, or as you say, that it's a part of who we are, of Jewishhood, the concept of memory? Jewishness and memory is almost the same thing. Yes, I agree with you, but, and there's, I think, a great but here in terms of how actually human beings, how their memory actually works, especially with young adults.
So can I add something? So I totally agree with what you're saying. And when it's like Tisha B'Av and I'm fasting and we're supposed to remember what happened 2,000 years ago, I have to admit that I'm much sad. What makes me feel most sad on Tisha B'Av is more I try to think of something more current, like the Holocaust, and then I could mourn. It's true, I'm not crying about the destruction from 2,000 years ago, but it's still very much a part of our memory, and it's still part of like the Jewish experience of overall all the pain and all the tragedies that have happened. But sometimes is that necessarily a bad thing that you're saying? Because maybe it's just a normal thing that they're going to have to think of something more recent that they experienced that they could feel it more. Otherwise, I don't know if it's possible to even to get back that memory, but as long as we remember it and we try to mourn it, is that the best we could, probably the best we can hope for? Or you think that we should feel it the same way the survivors felt it? Is that even a realistic hope?
No. I totally agree with you. It's how memory works, and it took me a while to understand this, especially after October the 7th, because in the beginning, when we would start saying, "Oh, this is exactly like it," I would really feel upset afterwards. But now I feel much more empathy, and much more. I feel more understandable to why they're saying that, and why it's logical for memory to work like that, and it is what it is, and I don't know if it's okay or not, but it is what it is.
And memory also connects to education. So, Ida, I would say you would probably agree with me that you probably know about the Holocaust a lot more than your children. I can definitely say that about myself, just because we're closer to the event and we interacted with people who have lived through it. So a part of our memory is also reinforced by education, and Holocaust education is what we're here to do. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you, Yaron, for your answers and for this incredible presentation. This was great. We will circle back and be back here next week at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for attending. Yaron, Dr. Eisenberg, Ronit, and your whole team, you've been wonderful. Thank you so much for facilitating it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
For organizing.
Stay warm
Bye-bye,
and safe.
everyone.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye. You can stay on the call if you'd like.